Well, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Volkswagen Foundation, I should like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. And I'm very grateful for your interest in the topic and in particular for your willingness to contribute to the intellectual success of this symposium. And I think the long end of the First World War, ruptures, continuities, and memories could not be adequately dealt with on such an occasion without strong inputs from outside of Europe. Therefore, I'm particularly grateful to those of you who have taken on the challenge of a long transcontinental journey to come to Hanover. Thank you very much. And I would like to extend a very warm welcome also to our 6 travel grantees who have also come from various parts of the world. Back in 2014, the centenary of the outbreak of the First World War was not only an important moment in time to commemorate, it was also a good opportunity to take further steps towards conducting more research on the subject matter. Keeping this in mind, the Volkswagen Foundation, the Zentrum Moderner Orient, the German Historical Institute, and the Leibniz University of Hanover invited researchers from all over the globe to the Herrenhausen Symposium on the world during the First World War in October 2013. As many of you will remember, this conference tried to leave behind a purely European approach focusing on the war and its global dimensions. In 2015, the second of this 3-part series, a symposium on revolutions and counter-revolutions, dealt with 1917 and its aftermath from a global perspective. The results of this symposium, compiled in a very thought-provoking miscellany, will be presented tomorrow evening. During the next 3 days, we will focus on the period between 1917 and 1923, maybe even further. The program tackles the relation between global history and social history, highlighting actors and regions, and it systematically engages with the issue of diverse periodizations. In discussing linkages between experience, historiography, and commemoration, the symposium aims at unsettling the notion of a static and clearly defined end of the war, a construct mainly based on European developments. You can find more of the explanations in the introductory part of the program. I'm sure that the institutes that have been instrumental in organizing this symposium, namely the Leibniz-Zentrum Moderner Orient, the German Historical Institute, and the Leibniz University of Hanover, will be very grateful to all of you to make your contributions available, and some of them will even be recorded and then later on distributed in various ways. I hope you all agree to that or have already agreed to that by signing the respective agreements. I'm particularly grateful to the steering committee who put together the program with continued commitment. This is Katrin Bromber, Santanu Das, Andreas Gestrich, Jennifer Jenkins, Katharina Lange, Heike Liebau, Michael Provans, Brigitte Reinwald, Thorsten Weber, and Anorte Wetzel from the Volkswagen Foundation. I think they all clearly deserve a warm hand of applause for all the work they've already done before we start. Well, with so many institutions keeping the name Leibniz in their overall denomination, Leibniz Center, Leibniz University, I of course have to explain that this place, this very place here, is also very, very strongly connected with the name of Leibniz. He spent a lot of time here in the palace, the former palace, that is, not the reconstructed one, of course, and in the royal gardens of Herrenhausen. And among others, he, in these gardens, discovered the principle of unity amidst variety, that no leaf of any tree is totally identical with the other one in its features, and that there are always differences. Maybe that is also a guideline for this symposium. And the other one is, of course, what I hope for, that also some of you tomorrow morning may wake up just like Leibniz one morning when he said, "When I woke up in the morning, I had already so many ideas that the day was not long enough to write them all down." In this sense, I wish you all an intellectually stimulating symposium, and I now hand over to Andreas Gestrich and Katrin Bromber for further introductory remarks. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wilhelm Krull, for this very kind welcome. On behalf of all the partner institutes and the steering committee who have been preparing this conference, I would like, first of all, to extend our warm welcome to all of you, but also our great thanks to the VolkswagenStiftung and particularly to Wilhelm Krull and Anote Wetzel, who has kept the group together and steered the steering committee through the preparatory phase. So thank you very much for all the work that's already gone into this conference. And in 2017, we are slightly sort of worn out almost of 4, 5, 6 years of World War I conferences. But I think the Herrenhausen conferences have always been particularly stimulating, at least for me. The first conference in 2013, it opened up the horizon of what until then, perhaps particularly in Germany, but not only, has been a very Europe-centric view and perspective on the First World War. And we, for the first time, really integrated experiences, not only on the political level, but also on the social and cultural historical level, experiences from all parts of the world. It was a world war after all. And then we went now, a second conference, which was already mentioned on 1917, and now we are looking at the end of the war, which, of course, has its diverse chronologies and dynamics as the whole war itself had as well. I'm more of an early modernist by training, actually, and the whole question of periodization of wars is always very vividly presented in the 30 Years' War, which, of course, for the Dutch is an 80 Years' War, and for others is somewhere in between. So the diverse ends and endings of the First World War, I think, which we are now exploring in this conference in various perspectives, will again shed very new light on, I think, the dynamics of this war and what it actually meant for Europe afterwards. So, but I leave the introduction into the topic to Katrin Bromber. From my side, it's again a thank you to all the colleagues and the work that has already gone into this conference, and particularly also for all participants who have agreed to come here together today and discuss the ending of the First World War and the continuities and memories with us over the next 2.5 days. So thank you very much, and particularly again thanks to the VolkswagenStiftung for hosting this and organizing, being the backbone for the organization of this conference. And I hand over then to Katrin Bromber, who will sort of give the rationale of the conference. Yes, please. So, thank you very much. And
good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. Please allow also me to start by thanking the Volkswagen Foundation for co-organizing and hosting this second symposium on the First World War. The first symposium was held, as already mentioned, in October 2013 under the title "The World During the First World War: Perceptions, Experiences, and Consequences." It showed the high potential as well as the big challenges of what it means to discuss the First World War as a truly global war. This does not just mean to look at other theaters of war than the European. It first of all means to shift the perspectives of research to regions in Africa, Asia, Australia, the Middle East, or Latin America. It is an attempt to understand the war in its multi-scalar and multi-regional dimensions, an issue which is also at the heart of this conference. I'm particularly happy about this symposium because I come from an institution, the Leibniz-Center for Modern Oriental Studies, where the studies on the world wars from an African and Asian perspective have formed a continuous focus of research since 1996. This research has addressed translocal aspects, especially South-South relations, as well as memories, experiences, and interpretations of the world wars using new sources, such as propaganda material in Hindi, Urdu, Arabic, or Swahili, and profiting from the fascinating sound recordings which are located in Berlin or other places. The centennial has moved these research foci into the limelight of historical research. And this brings me back to the first conference organized by the Volkswagen Foundation, conducted here in this very building in 2013. The conference demonstrated the ways in which a change towards a more global perspective on the war also leads to new questions and topics of research. In the final session, which explicitly dealt with questions of periodization, for instance, it was recurrently emphasized that shifting the perspective away from Europe, especially Western Europe, means, among other things, shifting the focus from the beginning of the war to its end, and especially to its long-term consequences. Depending on the questions we ask and the groups of actors we study, we may come to questions and revise conventional chronologies and periodizations of the First World War. We have to ask which post-war events and changes should be considered as still part of the First World War, and for what context? Does it make sense to situate the First World War within wider or other conflicts, such as the colonial era and the struggle for decolonization? What would this add to earlier understandings of the war, and what limitations do such widened periodizations produce? How far do these observations and statements force us to reconsider historical meta-narratives revolving around capitalism, emancipation, or progress? What was the place of the war within these developments? An accelerator, a turning point, or something else? The centennial of the First World War also leads us to revisit the relation between global and social history related to specific regions and social groups. One of the pioneers of German social history, Jürgen Kocker, remarked that questions about class and inequality, which were asked with regard to the First World War already in the 1970s, have returned during the centennial of the war. But they have not come back in the same way. They are now discussed within a social history beyond national frames, within a global social history. Such a global social history allows World War research which looks at multi-scalar contexts, a global social history which encourages both the study of entanglements and comparison. A global social history, however, which still has to develop comparative vocabularies for doing this kind of historical work. It is the sincere hope of the organizers of our symposium also to contribute to the conceptual, if not methodological, debate of how to do global social history. Apart from wider conceptual and methodological questions, the 2013 symposium included new trends or themes of World War research. One of them was the study of the war within the framework of environmental history. At that time, the topic was raised in the PhD session. In our second current symposium, it now forms a separate panel. The systematic search and use of new types of sources is another important feature of the centennial. Letters, visuals, sound recordings, and material objects, often already digitized and accessible to a large number of people, have become an integrative part of World War studies. They challenge established exclusively text-based methodologies. However, these new sources are not only objects of academic research. They also often assume specific functions in events and acts of remembrance. Exhibitions, art and media productions recontextualize these new sources in new ways and thus form a bridge between academic research and a broader historical awareness. Therefore, any academic debate about the long end of the war has to take these works seriously, all the more since they are in most cases produced in a fruitful collaboration between researchers from academic institutions and curators, journalists, or performers. By giving reflections on exhibitions and art productions a central place in our program, and including a poster exhibition as well, we do hope that this conference will further deepen the cooperation between academia and art. Despite all these exciting new developments, the centennial has also shown that Western European conceptual dominance will not go away so easily. Nevertheless, I'm firmly convinced that research on the First World War has become truly global. New perspectives and voices are continuously gaining ground. We hope that this symposium on the long end of the First World War will contribute to this project. Thank you.